All right. So the concept today, the heaven of Islam, is this truly what you want your neighbor believing? Give him Christ, people, because this topic should blow your mind. This is the reason why Constantinople fell. This is the reason why Islamization works. Their concept of heaven. It's much different than the Christian example. It's much different than any concept of heaven. And you're going to hear some of these things, and I'm going to give them to you straight from their scriptures, reading their sources. And it's not stuff that I've made up, as you'll be able to see. It's stuff that comes straight from their sources. So let's get into this. And just a second, I have to get back in so I can see. All right. And here we go. So Ronnie Berggren, he wrote, Muhammad needs to be problematized, not romanticized. Today in the West, he writes, flattering images of this prophet is often drawn. But Muhammad was a warlord who murdered, tortured, and took sex slaves and instilled his followers with notions where hedonism and violence were considered divine. In paradise awaited a cycle of eternal sexual experiences with women who were always virgins and beaten men who always stood. The way to this paradise was through war, to kill infidels. And in this struggle, you showed so much courage that you yourself fell. The way to this paradise was open. Now, let's think about that. Now, I'm going to pull in some important concepts that we need to think about. Let's take a look in just this week in the news. And see if this comes up. All right. Waiting to see if this actually, okay, good. All right. As you can see, this source, household Negro, Wallah, we will behead you, dark-skinned. And I've got to turn off my sound for YouTube. Okay. Household Negro, Wallah, we will behead you, dark-skinned Eric Zamor, activist, harassed and threatened. For those of you who do not know who Eric Zamor is, he's actually someone I've met personally and spoken with and given him a copy of my second book, Civilization, Jihad, and the Myth of Modern Islam. I met him in 2016, which I found greatly pleasing. He's a very, very interesting man. So let's get into this article by Fred Allen Fred Allen Medforth translated this. He writes, so the translation goes, the threats have been getting stronger and stronger over the past month, as they figured out reports. The threat to Tangu David, a declared supporter of Eric Zamor, has intensified since he started attending the man's meetings. What's the reason? His skin color. Does that surprise you? It should. In several pictures of the meeting held by the publicist on December 5th in Villepétain, Saint-Saint-Denis, the young law student and head of a local branch of Generation Z could be seen standing behind the candidate. Obviously, his skin color and his political commitment not really go together. Oh, really? Skin color and his commitment don't go together? Is that a racist statement? Yes, it is. They apparently don't think Black people can have different political choices. They don't have, they're not allowed to have their own mind. This stuff should shock you and make you abhorrent. So why is this important? Because this man has received death threats because he is Black and he is supporting him, and he's supporting the idea that France is for the French. The French are for the French. That's the idea. The natives should keep France. That's what it is. They're upset. They're willing to kill. Why? Because their concept of heaven is willing that they should accept. Yeah, we're going to get into that. this concept of heaven, they're allowed to kill for, to get into. They're allowed to die to get into. Their concept of jihad. Is this really something? Yeah, let me see if I can just X out of that. That's the difficulty I have here. Okay. All right. All right. Let's take a look at one more article, a couple more articles here, and I'm still hoping somebody will join us, but we'll get into it as soon as I'm done here. All right. Let's talk about what happened in Kenya this week. Here's the next one. Just got to wait for it to pop up. Okay. 3 killed in suicide attack in Kenya. Kisumu County Police, a commander and his wife died during the blast on Tuesday evening in Nyaka area, while the attacker also died on the spot after detonating himself. So this guy is a member of Al-Shabaab, and he blew himself up when he was asking people questions about Islam, and they had no clue how to answer the questions. So because they weren't Muslim, he killed them. It was a husband and wife, and their daughter also was injured. So the 3 that died, the bomber and the husband and wife, and that child is left parentless, motherless and fatherless, because they weren't jihadis. Again, all for their concept of heaven. Let's go again. Again, I'm only talking about stuff this week, people. This week. That last article came out December 8th. Just waiting for this next one to pop up. Here we go. Try it one more time. At least 30 killed in suspected jihadi attack in central Mali. Gunmen spray passenger vehicle with bullets, then set it alight. Women, children among the dead. This came out December 4th, people, or only a few days ago. Suspected jihadis in central Mali killed at least 30 civilians in an attack on a passenger vehicle in the volatile central town of Mopti, local officials said Saturday. The passengers were sprayed with bullets and the vehicle was torched during an attack. The state has sent security forces to the scene. The mayor, Husseini Say, okay, you're catching that he's Muslim. The state has sent security forces to the scene, they said, speaking on condition of anonymity. The shooting caused the truck to catch fire. 31 people dead. Most of them burned to death. Several injured, 2 missing. But that's okay because the jihadi is getting his ticket to paradise. Last one I'm going to cover, and then we're going to start getting into the Islamic pictures of heaven, the Islamic concepts using their scriptures. I mean, let's think about this. Is this reality, people? Are we seeing this daily from what you're seeing? How about this one? Germany court sentences Islamist who recruited fighters for the Islamic State. He's sentenced to more than 3 years in prison. 3.5 years he gets. 3.5 years. Again, this came out the 4th of December. It's a 28-year-old who's been promoting the Islamic State. Now, if you don't know, under Sharia and thanks to the Quran, if you promote and recruit or you provide income to jihadis, you have an equal right to join in the reward, which would be for them the 72 virgins, if that is what the Islamic thing of heaven is. Again, we're going to use their scriptures. So I'm saying if, and why am I saying if? Because we're going to use their scriptures, not by what I say. All right. Not by what anybody else says. I'm not even looking at Islamic scholars. I want to look at and find out if this is exactly what they are saying. This becomes all important because we need to look at exactly that. What are the Islamic scholars saying? Okay. Again, why should the Islamic concept of heaven be questioned? Now, I love this piece. Constantinople in the early 8th century, the emperor of Byzantium, Leo III, got into a polemic with rulers of the Muslims and wrote about paradise. He said, "We Christians do not expect to find sources of wine, honey, and milk there. We don't expect eternal contact with women." Boy, is he being polite. "Who remain virgins." See, he left out that sexual term. He was, again, it was considered distasteful to do this, to mention this stuff. But again, keep listening. "We have no faith in such stories created out of ignorance and paganism. But you who live for these urges see no purpose in a paradise without these women." Now, that's really important to think about. They have no concept or desire for heaven without the women. So is their God all about sex? This is a question to ask. Again, we're going to look at the Islamic scriptures. What do they say? So let's take a look. Quranic verses on heaven, Islamic paradise, the limits, and I say this, the limits of a desert mind. And hold on just a second, please. Oh, bummer. Bummer, I thought I was hoping to have somebody joining us soon. I have to let them know we're live now. Okay. He's having problems with his computer. I'm just hoping. I'm hoping that things can work. Okay. Let's keep going there. All right. Let's start with the Quran, chapter 56, verse 27. And for now, I'm going to read the Motion Khan version, which is the second from the bottom, as you can see. "And those on the right hand, who will be those on the right hand? They will be among thornless lote trees." And let's keep going. "Among tall banana trees with fruits piled one above another." Now, I want to look, reason I cited all these translations, so I want you to notice something. Banana trees, when they're talking about fruits piled one another, again, if this is the desert mind, it's not something you would normally see. So thank you for joining me, Eric.
Hey, Paul, how are you?
So I'm just starting to read the translation. I don't know if I put these up because I think it's important that people see that this is what their concept of heaven is. I've got a few verses to show. It comes right from the Quran, and then I've got I put the piece into. I put the PowerPoint in if you wanted to review it into Skype if you wanted to take a look.
Okay.
If you wanted to run ahead. Okay. Again, this is the desert mind. Their idea of heaven has to do with fruit trees, because in deserts you don't find a lot of fruit. Okay. Notice they're not going to be talking about green grass. All right. Motion Khan is what I'm reading. "In shade long extended." Shade, why? Because, again, in the desert, this limited mindset, it's too hot every place. So they need shade. Such a limited mind. "By water flowing constantly." Again, this is for the desert-minded person. Water flowing constantly. So if you live any place else in the world where you live near water, again, this tells you this is the desert mind. It's the limited mindset of a person in the desert. "And fruit in plenty." He had to keep mentioning that fruit because there's not enough fruit in any place in the desert. "Whose season is not limited, and their supply will not be cut off." Oh, again, the desert mindset, because you can only get food in certain times. "And on couches or thrones raised high." Doesn't it sound like it's disjointed? 33 said, "Whose season is not limited, and their supply will not be cut off." And all of a sudden, we're talking about couches and thrones. Sounds a little confusing. Well, it's the Quran. Verily, we have created them maidens of special creation. Oh, so who's on those thrones? Who's on those couches? These maidens of special creation. We're going to come back to that. Special creation. Keep that in mind. And made them virgins. Wait a minute. Are you born virgin, or do you have to be made virgin? Something to think about. Motion Khan's translation. Loving their husbands only, equal in age. Okay, this is Quran 56:37. Keep that in mind. For those on the right hand, a multitude of those on the right hand will be from the first generation who embraced Islam. And a multitude of those on the right hand will be from the latter time generation. Now, that's the first part I have. We're going to come back, or we'll go back to that in a minute. I want to keep, this starts in chapter 55:60 as another, again, a reference to their concept of heaven. And I keep saying the desert mind. Their concept of heaven is limited to the desert mind. Motion Khan, is there any reward for good other than good? Then which of the blessing of your Lord will you both, jinns and men, deny? And besides these two, there are two other gardens, i.e. in paradise. Then which of the blessings of your Lord will you both, jinns and men, deny? Dark green in color. Now, does that sound like it makes sense? It doesn't have flow. You know, that tells you that the person who wrote this he's not a great writer. You would think that if Allah's responsible for this, he would at least be able to make things flow. So you kind of, I mean, you look at the other translations here, and they're talking, they say more. They say it's dark green pastures or something. But again, there's nothing in the Arabic that tells you it's anything but color. Motion Khan. The which of the blessings of your Lord will you both deny? In them will be two springs gushing forth water. The wind, which of the blessings will you both deny? In them will be fruits and date palms. Again, we're talking about fruit, things that the desert mind is limited to. Then which of the blessings will you both deny? He has to keep repeating himself. It's like a sing-song response. Therein, gardens will be fair wives, good and beautiful. Then which of the blessings will you both deny again? Again, repeating over and over again. Now, this is important. You need to get this term, Horus. Horus, H-O-U-R-I-S. And when you're done, you're going to probably, when you're done listening, you're going to want to look this term up. I'm going to share the information I have on it, and it should make you think. Beautiful, fair females restrained in pavilions. Now, catch that term restrained. Let's go up and take a look at what Sahih International said. Fair ones reserved in pavilions. Pickthall said fair ones close guarded in pavilions. Okay, I don't see restrained there, but Yusuf Ali, companions restrained as to their glances. Again, you have to sit here and wonder, what are they talking about? Why are they restrained? Beautiful fair females, Horus. Motion Khan put beautiful fair females because, in parentheses, because it says Horus. Keep going. The which of the blessings will you both deny? He says, whom no man or jinn has opened their hymens. Again, we're talking about, okay, now we're getting into it, with sexual intercourse before them. Oh, so wait a minute. I thought they were virgins. I thought he created them as virgins, but he's opened their hymens with sexual intercourse. So Allah had sex? So if their God is having sex with this so they're getting second favor. They're not getting a real virgin. They're getting seconds. This is what these jihadis want. They're getting seconds. I didn't write it. This is in the Quran, people. I'm reading from Surah 55:74, as you can see. The which of the blessings of the Lord will you both deny? Reclining on green cushions and rich, beautiful mattresses. Okay. Going on to the next one. We're in Surah 44:51. Again, I'm going to be reading from Motion Khan. Verily, the mutakan, pious, will be in a place of security, paradise, among gardens and springs, dressed in fine silk, also in thick silk, facing each other. Keep thinking about this. So it will be, and we shall marry them to Horus. We shall marry them. Who's the them? Go dressed in fine silk and facing each other. Wait a minute. Are these women marrying women, or are there? Let's go back. Who's wearing the silk? The mutakin. That would make them, right? Dressed in fine silk and thick silk, facing each other. So it will be, we shall marry them to Horus. So you're going to have these men wearing silk, getting married to the Horus, the female fair ones with wide, lovely eyes. They will call therein for every kind of fruit and peace and security. They will never taste death therein except the first death of this world, and he will save them from the torment of the blazing fire. As a bounty from your Lord, that will be the supreme success. Arbery. As a bounty from your Lord, that will be the supreme success. So, where are the 72 virgins? Eric, did you hear anything in there about 72 virgins?
I didn't notice anything. It must be a hadith.
Oh, it is.
Oh, okay, well, there you go. It's probably Daif, though. I mean, it.
Oh no, actually, it's what's the second one? It's accepted. It's good. It's considered good. The Daif is not accepted.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So
I don't remember what you call it either. Sure.
So Bukhari, here we go with Bukhari. Bukhari, Volume 4, Book 54, number 476, narrated by Abu Huraira. The prophet said, the first batch of people who will enter paradise will be glittering like the full moon, and batch next to them will be glittering like the most brilliant star in the sky. Their hearts will be as if their heart of a single man, for they will have neither enmity nor jealousy among themselves. Everyone will have 2 wives from the Horus. Did you hear 2? I mean, I didn't hear 72.
That's 70 short of what they were promised.
Yeah, so this is getting really interesting. So who will be so beautiful, pure, and transparent that their marrow of their bones, of their legs will be seen through? Okay. How is that beautiful? I mean, does that sound beautiful? Would you like to... I sorry, I don't want to be married to something like that. It just sounds alien, foreign, and disgusting to me.
Well, the idea for these Houris, it actually comes from I think it's some type of Syriac folklore or Syriac literature that was circulated within the Catholic Church itself. And you find there was a book written a number of years ago. It's called The Mosque of Notre Dame. And in this book, it describes Paris as being taken over by Muslims, and Muslims are ruling the city, and the Notre Dame has been turned into a mosque. This is before it burned down. Okay. And the Houris are demons is what they are, because when you try to satisfy your lusts, the first time, great, second time, all right, third time, okay, fourth, fifth, sixth, by the time you get to the 10th, 20th, or whatever time, and you're constantly made to do this, it wears you out. And that desire to engage in that all the time will stop. Now, the man this is why they're demons. They force the man to keep on performing until it becomes like a curse to him. So this is actually where Muhammad got his ideas for this. He had heard about these women, these in heaven, or it was probably hell where he heard it from, but he places them in heaven to satisfy all of your carnal desires. But in what's going to happen if you follow the rules of logic and what happens here on earth, it'll be a curse. So to say that they have bones that are transparent or translucent
Yeah.
or whatever,
It's
it's sick is what it is. It really, it's following that idea is what it's doing.
So let's keep going. The hadiths. So we've got 2 wives now they're allowed, and they're marrying something not human. I mean, because I've yet to see a human that has that looks like that.
They have full breasts.
All right. So Muhammad reported, this is from Sahih Muslim, book 40, hadith number 6793. Muhammad reported that some persons stated with a sense of pride, and some discussed whether there would be more men in paradise or more women. It was upon this that Abu Hurairah reported that Abu Qasim, the holy prophet, said the members of the first group to get into paradise would have their faces as bright as full moon during the night. And the next to this group would have their faces as bright as the shining stars in the sky. And every one of them every person would have 2 wives. So we're 70 short, aren't we, Eric? And the marrow of their shanks, that's their legs, would glimmer beneath the flesh. And there would be none without a wife in paradise. So you're going to see their bones. Ugh.
Now, okay, these women, or these wives that they have, is this paradise for them? Where now instead of having
remember
4 of you to share, you're down to 2 to 1 instead of 4 to 1. Is that
so? It gets another problem, because we went back in the Quran. It said they were created for the people in heaven, so they aren't the actual. So these are not human people. These are specifically created for those people those jihadis that made it, or mujahideen, and mujahid, So it's specifically created for them according to the Quran. I mean, following their scriptures, it's got to make you think if they're not. Yeah. All right. So I found this in. This comes from the book of Virtues on Jihad. And I can't. It's from Tamidi. Is that how you pronounce it, Eric? Or Tamidi? Chapter 25, narrated Al-Mikdam bin Madikarib. I have difficulties pronouncing things, so I'll give it a shot. That the messenger of Allah said, there are 6 things with Allah for the martyr. He is forgiven with the first flow of blood he suffers. He is shown his place in paradise. He is protected from punishment in the grave, secured from the greatest terror. The crown of dignity is placed upon his head, and its gems are better than the world and what is in it. He is married to 72 wives along Al-Huril, Ain of paradise, and he may intercede for 70 of his close relatives. Is he supposed to give them 70 of those wives? I mean, is that what those 70 women are for him to give away?
No. 16, given the first flow of blood he suffers, he is shown in place in paradise. So just as soon as he's killed, or the first flow of blood, goes to paradise, doesn't go to hell, secured from the greatest terror, which would be hell, I guess. The crown of dignity is on his head, so he's getting crowns for getting there, and the gems on the crown are better than the world. He's married to 72 wives, and he may intercede for 72. Okay, yeah, that's.
Doesn't it sound like he has to give 70 wives away?
No, it doesn't. No, he is married to 72 wives,
and he may intercede for 70
of his close
relatives.
This is why you have shaheeds. The mothers and the parents of the shaheeds are very proud of their children, because they know that their son is going to allow them to come into heaven free pass.
So the women can only get there if their male relatives request them to come or intercede for them.
It guarantees them. passage. It doesn't mean that, they can't, if your kid, if your son or whatever doesn't go out and kill himself, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to get into paradise, as far as I know anyway. But what it does mean, though, is just as a shaheed, just as a martyr is guaranteed to go to paradise by dying in jihad, he is also given 72 virgins, and he is able to vouch for or allow 70 people of his choosing to come into paradise with him. So this is why you see mothers on these TV. I'm so proud of my son, and I'm so happy for him. No, you're not, lady. According to your beliefs, you're happy because now you're going to be guaranteed to go to paradise.
And this is this hadith, because I looked this up, and I saw some comments on Muslim sites that said, well, this is not reliable. But if you look at it, it says Hassan Sahih, which means it's good. And Sahih and Hassan are the two accepted levels of hadiths. If you go,
and Tirmidhi is one of the 6 compilers that are trusted. The majority of their hadith are trusted to be Sahih.
Yeah, I looked it up. I wanted to make sure, because again, I want to know what the 72 virgins came from, because it's not in the Quran. Only Quran says you only get 2. This is why the Quran is never enough for Islam, followers of Islam. And that's, the other day I was on a show with Rad, and I was just trying to get this one guy to say the Quran is not enough, and he wouldn't say that. I found fascinating.
Well, there's a lot of things that they won't admit, because if they do, then it gets them in trouble.
Yep. All right. So here's where I went to Wiki Islam, and this is where I found this. It says Huri, the heavenly virgin. Heavenly virgins are a variety of celestial being. Again, so they're not human, according to Islamic scriptures. Serve as a key attraction of heaven, or Jannah. Huris are mentioned in Quranic texts as a reward for believing men in the afterlife. So the women get nothing. They get no sexual pleasure.
Well, how can they? They probably had gone through female genital mutilation, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and that's another thing. There's no chance. That's a good point. So you have to sit there. What do they get? They get to be servants. You have to have a lot of questions, because they never describe anything that women get. So what is heaven for them? No one will ever know, because it's not in Islamic scripture. According to the Quran, one in Jannah believers are wed to virgin Huris who have full-grown, swelling, or pears-shaped breasts. The Quran provides a physical and personal description of Huri and denotes them as awards to believers. A hadith graded Sahih details the number of Huris that will be awarded to martyrs. That's the 72 virgins. Orthodox Muslim theologians such as Ghazali has discussed the Huris as being rewards and pleasures found in heaven. Al-Ghazali, in particular, refers to a hadith described heaven as a slave market where there will be no buy and sale. But if any man wishes to have sexual intercourse with a woman, he will do it at once. The same hadith is quoted by Ibn Kathir in his Quranic commentary, the Tasfir Ibn Kathir. The Huris are also described graphically by Quranic commentator, polymath, al-Suyuti, who died in 1505, who, echoing Sahih Hadith from Ibn Majah, wrote that the perpetual virgins will all have appetizing vaginas, and the penis of the elected never softens. The erection is eternal. So their entire concept of heaven has to do with sexual gratification. And this is, as I read earlier in the show, and this is what I'm just going to go back to that. Let me see if I can easily go back. Sorry, we'll go back to that.
Well, if you think about this, the purpose of sex, what God created for, was for procreation. And God created it for mankind to be pleasurable, to be a bond between a man and a woman. And just like everything Satan does, he's perverted what God created into this. This is a perversion of the purpose of sex.
So what I want to do is look here again. Again, this is what I credit Ronnie Berggren, who's a great Swede, patriotic Swede, and he writes he's talking about how Byzantium, Emperor of Byzantium, Leo the Third, got in a discussion with the rulers of Muslims and wrote about paradise. He said, "But you who live for your urges see no purpose in paradise without these women." That they have to describe their erection to I
don't know. Maybe this is a fantasy of an old man where he just, they didn't have Viagra at the time, and this is just something that he just dreamed up, or he heard and he goes, boy, wouldn't that be nice? And to get, encourage my fighters to keep fighting, or especially the older ones who, are getting up there in the age. The whole premise behind it, as far as with the perpetual sexual gratification, the perpetual virginity of these demon-like creatures, is again a perversion of what God created in perfect order for us here on earth. Not for us in heaven, but for here on earth. It's sick.
It is. And again, I wanted to pull this one up. It's nasty. I apologize for any children watching. I don't intend you for this. If you have children, please don't let them pay attention to this. Close their ears. Each time, this is from Al-Itqan fi Ulum al-Quran, page 351. He wrote, each time we sleep with a houri, we find her virgin. Besides, the penis of the elected never softens. The erection is eternal. The sensation that you feel each time you make love is utterly delicious and out of this world, and were you to experience it in this world, you would faint. Each chosen one, Muslim, will marry 70 houris. Oh, what happened to the 2? Besides the women he married on earth, and all will have... Again, there is such a fascination with sex.
It's an obsession. This is why it's easy. It's easy to clinically analyze or psychoanalyze. I'm sorry. It's easy to clinically psychoanalyze Muhammad based on things like this and what he's described as doing in the Hadith. Having sex with all your wives in one evening and not taking a bath. That's a sexual pervert. That's a pervert. That's a sex addict right there. And all of the other perversions that he is described as having make him a sex addict, somebody that has no concept of what normalcy would be when it comes to sex. I mean, when you're having sex with 10, 11 women in one evening, there's something wrong with you. When you're having sex, you're 54 and you're having sex with a 9-year-old girl, there's something wrong with you. When you are attracted to the wife of your son, even if it's an adopted son, I don't care. When you're attracted to the wife of your adopted son, there's something wrong with you. If you think people are going to believe you, that you get a revelation that it's okay to have sex in the bed of one of your wives with a slave girl, there's something wrong with you. So to psychoanalyze Muhammad as a pervert, as a sex addict, it's easily done. So that would subsequently lead to his sayings, his hadith. I don't believe the hadith as far as I can throw them, but to lead to these things, it just makes perfectly good sense that the perversions that he supposedly enjoyed during his life are also going to be found in the afterlife.
Well, one of the things I think that is extremely, extremely concerning, again, these Muslims, the followers of Islam, I'm just going to put it that way. I don't necessarily like the term Muslim much because I think we have to strictly look at the followers of Islam. This is their faith structure. This is what they choose to follow and to identify with. And one of the things that really gets me with this is they think that Muhammad is so important, so perfect, that they had to copy him in every way. Now, this even means, believe it or not, going to the bathroom in the same way that he did. And if you think I'm wrong, go look up Uh, it's kneeling. No, it's squatting toilets, and you'll find them even on YouTube. How to install a squatting toilet. Again, it's not something I've made up. They have to copy him in every way. Even how he went to the bathroom is described. Now, this guy who's made perversion the goal, if the end, not just the means to get people involved in war, that's their prize when they get done, when they get killed on their way. That's their ultimate. They get a prize of sex for the rest of their lives and an eternal hard-on. I mean, that's their concept of heaven. To me, I consider this very minute. This concept of heaven is very small, puny. It only has one concept. It doesn't have the concept of pleasure beyond sex. And for those of us who are older or who have, there are many pleasures in life. You should know that. But this God, their God, is so limited in his perspective.
And what he could reward, and what he can reward people with in a heaven.
Yes.
He can't, in this religion, he cannot reward you any more than having wine and resting in the shade, things that we can take pleasure
Having
in.
some fruit.
having some fruits, having some fresh water, sitting in the cool shade on cushions, and perpetually engaged in sexual activity. The God of Islam is a one-minded. What do they call that? One-track mind.
One-track mind. Yeah. Whatever sets your sexual pleasure up.
Right, and it's the physical pleasure, and that's the thing. Are we to have physical bodies in heaven? Does it describe us as having physical bodies or spiritual bodies? I mean, if you're in heaven, how can you satisfy the flesh in heaven? And that's it's I don't know.
That's another great question. Yeah. I mean, that's again, this is it's a whole other discussion that it should be asked of every jihadi who's planning on things. I mean, this is what I think they do not. They don't dare to ask when they do these deprogramming things because they're afraid to tell the truth. They're afraid to hurt their feelings. So I put this slide up because I mentioned this in my book, What Social Studies Teachers Need to Know About Islam. What I found in this, there was a battle. I think it's called the Battle of Badr, but this is the first battle where they win. And I'm just going to read this. And again, why am I mentioning it? Because the man I'm going to be reading about goes to this Islamic concept of heaven. So the battle started with arrows finding a former Muslim slave who had been freed by Umar. Another of the arrows struck a Muslim drinking from the cistern, piercing his throat. This seemed to distress the raiders. The raiders are who? They are the followers of Muhammad. Ibn Ishaq records that Muhammad walked out and proclaimed, "By Allah," he says, "in whose hand is the soul of Muhammad, no man will be slain in this day, fighting against them with the steadfast and courage, advancing, not retreating, but God will cause them to enter paradise." So if you read this really quick, no man will die. Then he says, but God will cause them to enter paradise. Okay, so maybe some of you will die. So it's kind of a contradictory promise. This was now a jihad, a holy war for the cause of Allah and his prophet. One of Muhammad's boldest warriors, Auf Biharith, asked, "O apostle of Allah, what makes the Lord laugh with joy at his servant?" Muhammad looked at him and answered, "When he plunges into the midst of the enemy without chainmail." Auf Biharith took off his coat of mail, grabbed his sword, and flew into the enemy with a fury until he was killed. So he wanted his 72 virgins now. And
they actually have videotaped people that were fighting for ISIS who they're in a firefight and they're saying, look, if you go out there and you're killed, you're going to immediately paradise, and you're going to have your 72 virgins. And these guys get out there and they start fighting like Rambo, for crying out loud, shooting from the hip, blah, 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 and then all of a sudden you see, the return fire coming in, and it kills them, and then they haul them off. And the reason why he went out there to do that is because of this hadith. Well, this isn't even hadith. This is from the Sirah of Muhammad. Because of something like this. Because
Yes.
if you go out there and you fight boldly and you go right into the heart of the enemy, look what's going to happen to you. You're going straight to paradise.
And
that's what they're doing. I mean, this is how they fool the weak-minded.
And this is why I started this section off talking about the news, some of the news of the week. This is why we have jihadis. This is why Islam, you cannot trust your neighbor if they have these beliefs. And I say that, well, if your neighbor has a belief that of Islam, if he's idolizes Muhammad and wants to copy him in every way. Muhammad, again, married a 6-year-old and bedded her at the age of 9. If you ask your neighbor who follows Islam, and that you ask them point blank, do you think everybody should consider Muhammad the perfect man? And he will probably say yes. So do you think, next question, I've done this, okay? I've asked Muslims this question just this way. And I always get a yes, Muhammad was the perfect man. And I say, should we copy him? I mean, are you trying to copy him? And, at least that person always admits, yes, I'm trying to copy him. So, and then I'll ask them, do you have a daughter? And those who say yes, I says, okay. So how do you feel about your daughter being married off at the age of 6 and bedded at the age of 9? I could hear crickets normally. They don't like, what are you talking about? Like, oh.
Now
so you're telling me that if I have a 6-year-old daughter that you might be interested in her? Are you telling me that? Because you're telling your children to emulate this prophet? I mean, I have serious concerns. It's not hatred that I'm giving. This is awareness. This has to do with awareness. I'm quoting their sources, not mine. If you look here, it comes from my book, but I'm giving credit to Ibn Ishaq's Sirah al-Rasul. You can find this on page 300. Thank you, Eric. Yeah, you can pick this up, The Life of Muhammad. It costs about $35, if I remember right. Is that about right? Yeah,
I'm muted. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm fact checking you. Page 300.
I think it was page 300.
Okay. Oh wait, no. Page 32. What's that mean? Page 32.
That's from my book.
That's from your book. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, my book is really thin. You don't need to.
Yeah.
This book is like 500 pages.
Okay.
The Sirah al-Rasul.
All right. So it says the first Muslim fell was Mijay, the freeman from Umar, was shot by an arrow. Then while Haritha was drinking by the cistern, an arrow pierced his throat and killed him. Then the apostle went forth. Is that about right? What it says there?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's right in the book, guys. It isn't like he's making it up.
So, if this is their God, now my questions are this: can Islam survive without a belief in eternal sexual pleasure for men? It's a male-run belief structure. It's a male award only, and the women only get awarded if the men are agreeable to them. Am I correct here? From what I mean, the women don't get in, even if they blow themselves up, from what I understand, because there's no promise to women.
I'm not exactly sure what the teaching on that is as far as what is promised women in paradise, but I can pretty much guarantee you that any woman would not want 72 men when she got to paradise.
Well, there was no promise of them getting 72 virgin men.
I don't know.
My gosh.
The point is that you're absolutely right. There is no guarantees to the women. in Islam. It's only the men who fight in jihad.
Again,
Women,
very, like you're saying, very limited perspective of heaven. It's an important discussion.
it's exactly what you
Again,
would find. It's exactly what you would expect with the false prophet too. This is
yeah.
exactly what you would expect.
So again, why should she believe? This is my question. Okay, if the Houris, the 72 virgins, are as described, they're not human. Okay, it says that in the Quran. They are not human. They are created. They are created for those who die in jihad. That's it. Go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sneezing. I'm
okay.
I have a cold. But to answer your first question, can Islam survive without the belief in eternal sexual pleasure for men? And to be honest with you, when we talk about the rapid expansion of Islam, it's not done through the diffusion of trade. It's not done through proselytization. It's done through what? It's done through kinetic fighting, forceful fighting. And you have to have a motivation for people to fight. And if that motivation of perpetual houris, perpetual virgins, having perpetual erections in a heaven that has, rivers of wine and all these other things that satisfy the flesh, you're not going to get jihadi warriors to fight for you. Therefore, you are not going to expand Islam, and therefore Islam will regress and eventually die out. So I would say no, using that logic.
I've actually had a discussion today with a friend from Canada, and he was talking to me about how this war in the fall of Constantinople, the reason for the fall was just like you were describing. The jihadis, the mujahid, would come out, and they would recklessly fight, and one would replace the other, and the truth was, these great crusaders, they were slaying so many. They were tired from slaying them. That's what happened. They were overwhelmed by forces. Each one of those Christian crusaders trained to fight was slaying so many, they just became exhausted. And this is part of the reason for this, is this sexual motivation that they will run into.
And you think you're going to fight very hard if as soon as I get killed, I'm gonna be with 72 virgins, and I'm gonna spend eternity gratifying my flesh. Are you really going to fight that hard, or are you going to just don't make it hurt that bad? And you
doesn't that sound like this is the justification for a suicide bomber. Let's get it over quickly.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right, because it doesn't get any better. Too bad these guys didn't know about suicide bombing, because they'd probably be doing that.
Yeah. So again, I want you to think again, the Islamic concept of heaven. Do those following Islam actually want to have sex with women whom they can see their bones?
I don't even know what to say about that.
That's what I've left there. It's a question. We'll leave it there. How about this one? The implications of virgins here is stated that in the Quran that they are the same age as the men who earned their way to Jannah or Islamic paradise, but their virginity portrays them as prepubescent. Do you want a devout follower of Islam living next door to you with this concept of paradise as you raise your daughters?
I'm going to put on a list is what I want.
Yeah.
Okay. Same age as men.
Yeah, it says that they will be the same age, but they're making them they're talking about their virginity. And again, in Islamic culture, these would be the concept of virgins would be prepubescent. Okay, because they get married off and have sex with at the age of 9.
Right.
So when they're talking about this is the essence that they're counting. So you might die at 50. You might get a girl who's 50 years old, but this virgin, you have to sit there and ask some questions. What are they really thinking about? Because and this is a scary thought. It sounds perverted. I'm sorry, but this is the Islamic concept of heaven. And again, it's something to think about with if you have a neighbor like this. It's you might be protecting them, and if you make your daughters are aware that this could be, let's be careful here. I'm not being hateful. I'm being honest, and I'm reading their scriptures. So again, it should cause you to have reason to think.
Sure.
One of the last ones I have here is Muhammad or Allah confused about how many virgins his martyrs get. So, we read in the Quran that the martyrs only get 2. My question is, if the martyrs only get 2, why do the hadiths say differently? That's, I think, a very, very important question. What's happening that the martyrs? Again, if the Quran says 2, are the 72 that they get? Are they supposed to give those? That's why I was saying, are they supposed to give those 70 away to the people they invite in? Is that their reasoning for that? That's the question I'm asking. Not an Islamic scholar, but it makes me wonder if that's the purpose of those 70, is to give those 70 away. And that would make the people they're inviting male. So no woman could get there. And this would be something to consider. It's all on them. So again, it's something to consider. Now,